Hi guys, I'm Gasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our Coffee Times. Today I'm here to talk to you about the 4 new movie releases that are part of Welcome to the Blumhouse.
It's coffee time.
As you guys know, I'm currently packing to move. As you can see, I have been already removing some of the collectibles from the background. I've been packing them in their original packages, which takes a little bit of time, and slowly but surely things on my background are going to disappear. And because of that, of course, I have not had any time at all to record, which is sad, especially in spooky season and when I have so many ideas and so many videos that I want to do, but it's gonna have to wait. I'm writing down all those ideas so that I can come back to them later once I have the time again. But the new installment, the new 4 movies from Welcome to the Blumhouse were released. This is part 2 and we got 4 new movies on Amazon Prime. Welcome to the Blumhouse is a film series consisting of theme-related anthological thriller horror stories developed and produced by Blumhouse Productions for Prime Video as Amazon Prime originals. So the idea of this ongoing collaboration between Blumhouse and Amazon Prime was to bring movies that have kind of like the same theme but are approaching it from a different perspective and give the chance to directors to bring their own vision to that common theme. The first 4 centered around love and family as redemptive and destructive forces, and from those 4, as you guys know, I did a video on those 4 first releases. My favorite one was Nocturne. So when the new 4 were about to come out in the month of October, I knew that I had to check them out. These new 4 movies are centered around institutions and personal phobias. They released 2 in the first week of October and 2 on the second week of October. Now that I watched them all and now that I have all my thoughts in place, I decided to sit down today to talk to you about the films and to let you know if, in my opinion, you should give them a chance or not. So the first 2 that were released were Bingo Hell and Blackest Night, and those were a little bit more kind of on the comedy cheesy side, and the other 2 that were released were Madres and the Manor, which were more a little bit about institutions and things that have happened at institutions or are still happening nowadays. And I decided to watch them as they were being released, and today I'm gonna present you my list from least favorite to my favorite one from the new 4. Unfortunately, my least favorite one is one that has something that I really love, which is vampires, but that is Blackest Night. Unfortunately, this one didn't really work for me. It had interesting things, it had some things that I kind of liked, but in general I felt like this was a little bit of an undercooked movie in a lot of ways, and it didn't end up being as enjoyable as I expected, and I ended up being a little bit bored with it. In this American horror thriller film, we follow a teenage girl, Shauna, who is struggling with having confidence in herself and a drug-addicted mother. Thinking this is the worst of it, Shauna is then attacked one night by a vampire. And this is going to start for her a new different type of summer in New Orleans, as she's going to be forced to fight against vampires. While the movie, as I said, had a couple of things that were interesting, things that were introduced that could have potentially been good themes and good social commentary, they never really developed that. So everything felt unfinished in a way. So let's be honest, this movie did not bring anything new to the vampire subgenre. The narrative was not the best, and the characters, at least for me, were really unlikable. I was not rooting for anybody here. But if I would have to say my biggest issue, my biggest problem with this movie, that was the pacing. It didn't have a proper rhythm and it made the movie boring. It just got to the point where I was not caring anymore, and it is a pity in a way because they did bring up some social commentary about, you know, like the poorer neighborhoods and you know, like this girl is trying to save her community from vampires, which, you know, has a lot of different interpretations, but I feel like they got these themes and they didn't go anywhere with them, so everything was like unfinished. That's exactly how I would describe this movie. So it is a pity because I was excited about this one being a movie about vampires. On number 3 today we have Bingo Hell. In the barrio of Oak Springs live a strong and stubborn group of elderly friends who refuse to be gentrified. Their leader, Lupita, keeps them together as a community and family. However, their beloved bingo hall is about to be sold to a much more powerful force than money itself. With this movie, honestly, I had a lot more fun than I expected. I had the feeling it might not be for me, and then I ended up having a good time with the film. When I was watching it, I had this feeling that this could have been part of a horror anthology, like a cheesy one, kind of like creep show, you know, because towards the ending, when, you know, all of the deaths start to happen, it does turn a little bit stylized, a little bit cartoony with like green goo and stuff, and it just felt like kind of creep show in a way, at least for me. And maybe this story would have worked really well as a short, or a, you know, a short horror story in one of these anthologies. I really love the characters, and I also appreciated that we have here a cast in which the majority of the main cast are older people, which is not something that you come across in horror so much, and I really did appreciate that. And I was actually rooting for the characters. I thought they were funny at times. The jokes didn't always land, but I thought in general it was fun. And of course, Richard Brake plays the bad guy here, and he did such an amazing job. I feel bad for the guy, but it's one of those people that you know that he's perfect as the bad guy. I think the last time I saw him was in The Dare, which was a slasher that I absolutely loved, and I didn't expect to love it so much. But yeah, like I said, the characters in this one really worked for me, which I think is also kind of what saved this movie a little bit for me and made me love it more than Blackest Night. The social commentary here is basically that larger companies, larger entities are taking advantage of poor neighborhoods, of desperate people, and you can see that come across. I don't think it was as strongly presented as it could have been, but you definitely do see that social commentary in the film. So at least this one did combine social commentary with some cheesy, I would say, horror. As for the first and the second spot, it was a little bit harder to decide here because I do feel like both Madres and the Manor offer good things, but at the end of the day I had to go with the movie that I felt was more well-rounded altogether. So in number 2 I decided to put Madres. Directed by Ryan Zaragoza, Madres follows a Mexican-American couple that are expecting their first child and decide to relocate to a migrant farming community in 1970s California. When the wife starts to experience strange symptoms and have some visions, she's scared that there might be something else in that ground, in that land that they're living in. She even fears there might be a curse that is affecting her pregnancy. The film had really good, strong acting, I have to say. I think this had the best acting out of the 4, and I did appreciate that the majority of the cast was Hispanic, and a lot of things were addressed, like the fact that our main character, even though she's Hispanic, she cannot speak Spanish, which is something that, you know, happens, and she is being kind of casted out by the other women because she doesn't speak Spanish. And I thought that was such interesting to be brought up because I haven't seen that brought up in many movies. But let's talk about the biggest issue of this film, which is that the horror is barely there, and that was such a pity, such a missed opportunity, because I absolutely love the theme of this film. The acting was great, and it's just such a pity that the horror was not properly explored. And I felt like this was more of a drama thriller, in like investigation thriller, more than a horror as it was sold, and I feel like that's why I had to put it on number 2. I was unfamiliar with the story of this film, and I learned after watching the movie that this is based on true events, and then I did some research, and then I was terrified again by humanity. And that is the thing, in this movie you can expect some sort of supernatural elements, you know, to try to create some atmosphere, to try to create that horror, but the true horror of this movie is the real events, the real things that happened to these women. And I feel like if the movie would have went more in that direction and would have made it more kind of like this realistic horror, it would have worked so much better for me when it comes to the horror, because you have to wait to the very end for the climax and a little bit of horror, and I feel like it was a little bit too late because I wasn't seeing this movie as a horror anymore, and I feel like that's what was missing for me, like a little bit stronger connection between the social commentary of this movie and the horror. But I did appreciate that they tried to bring a lot of things from Mexican culture into the movie, and also kind of to use it as horror elements. So there is something that happened in this film that we have already seen in The Curse of La Llorona, and I would like to talk about that because this is not really a spoiler, but in this movie, in Madres, we see our main character that is about to cook some eggs, and when she opens the egg, when she cracks it open, it comes out full of blood. And I saw a film critic, like a recognized film critic, say that that was kind of silly and pointless and unneeded, but I don't know if he's aware of the meaning of that, because as we saw in The Curse of La Llorona, when you use an egg, when you have it in your house and you crack it open and it has blood inside, it means that there is something evil, some sort of presence that is haunting your house. It also has other meanings, like your life is in danger, you know, it's kind of like a premonition that you're gonna die. So it did have a purpose, it did have a meaning, and it is connected to the Mexican culture. So for me, it was an important element added to the film, one of the little horror elements added to it, and I appreciated it because it's something that belongs to the Mexican culture, and I loved to see something like that added into a movie where we're following Mexican characters. It made sense, at least for me, but anyway, rant over. At the end of the day, I really wanted to love this movie so much because of the topic, because of the good acting. It was really nicely shot, it has really nice cinematography, but I just feel like the horror elements were not there for me, so that's why, like I said, I put it on number 2. And with that, of course, you guys know that my favorite one then from this batch has been The Manor. After suffering a stroke, Judith Albright moves into a historic nursing home where she begins to suspect something supernatural is preying on the residents. In order to escape, she'll need to convince everyone around her that she doesn't actually belong here at all. You know, even though, I'm gonna say it, this movie was kind of predictable most of the time, I felt like there were a lot of interesting elements here as a horror movie that I love to see, and I'm excited for whatever the director has to bring us next. This is a movie that kind of has me now interested on the director as well. The mystery of this movie, the kind of social commentary, it is about the elderly people that are put into these nursing homes, into these facilities, how they're treated, kind of the process of aging, what happens when you start losing your mind, where nobody believes you. And I think from the 4, this is the one that did the best job when it comes to merge that social commentary and that kind of critique on this institution that are nursing homes, and combine it with horror and being more creative, go all out with the horror and give us twists and turns. And that is why this one was my favorite out of the 4. If I look at it objectively, this is the one that did the better job. Even though the movie did have many tropes, you know, many elements that you might have seen in horror before, and it can be predictable at times, it still was from the beginning creepy, from the beginning giving us horror. We also got different elements from horror, not just one direction, and it does have some twists and turns. Some of them you might not even see coming, and for me this one was the one that I had the most fun with just because of that. And I think the depiction of evil in this movie is also something that ends up being like bizarre, and I don't know, I really enjoyed it, and it has really relatable characters. We are all in the position of understanding how it is with nursing homes. We all have older family members. We all know that at some point we're gonna get old, so it is relatable. We all think about what happens if one day I lose my mind, what happens if one day I'm not able to take care of myself anymore. So it is also all kind of wrapped up in these like human fear that we all have. And you guys know I love movies that take like a super realistic fear, something that can happen to anybody anytime, and you know, just work with it and integrate a lot of nice horror elements to the story. And I feel like this is what the Manor achieved. So in the end, these Welcome to the Blumhouse movies, they have not been as amazing as I kind of expected when they first were announced, but I love that they're giving the opportunity to new directors to bring their vision to life, to talk about some topics that are really interesting that, you know, should be open for discussion. And I love to see what they can do combining it with horror. From the first four, I still say my favorite one is Nocturne. I felt like it was kind of like Asian horror. The pacing, even though it was slow, I feel like the ending was worth it every bit. And from the second batch, the Manor obviously was my favorite one because I feel like it's the one that did the better job. Even though predictable at times, it was the one that gave me all the nice horror elements that I wanted. Alright guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below which one has been your favorite of the 8. Have you watched the new ones? Do you plan to? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Please be patient with the content. I promise I'll try to upload when I can. Thank you guys for sticking with me. Please give the video a big thumbs up. You really support if you do that. And I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye.